Today, I am joined by the lovely Sarah Bramall. Now, Sarah and I met a few years back. We were just talking about this, thinking maybe it could be about 6 years. And yeah, Sarah sort of came into my world. We were at an event. She was there as a coach, and I have sort of learned and been in part of Sarah's coaching group since, and then we've become friends. And I just always learn so much from Sarah, and I really wanted her to asked her if she would be happy to share her sort of story with us about the transition, the journey she's been on from the teaching world into being a coach and all the things that she does today, alongside juggling life with 3 kids. So Sarah, thank you for joining me today. I wondered if you could introduce yourself for anyone that doesn't know you and just tell us a bit about you.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me with Laura. It's so lovely to talk to you. And I love the fact that you said that you think that we've known each other for about 6 years, but neither of us is really
We're
sure.
not exactly sure, are we? It's about that.
Who knows? At the time of the times as well, I think the pandemic has got a lot to answer for in that respect. None of us have got any idea.
No, we've lost
or what we're doing. So who am I? So my name's Sarah. I've got that far. I am a coach, as Laura kindly introduced me, and I'm a mum to 3. So I live close to Laura. I live in Redbourne, just north of St Albans. And yeah, so I'm a coach trainer, and I'm a coach supervisor. And in my coaching work, I focus predominantly on supporting women with career leadership, confidence and mindset to really support women to thrive in all aspects of their lives, personally and professionally. And I'm also co-founder of the Coaching Catalysts with my lovely partner, Rebecca Daniel. So I think that's me in a nutshell. Great to be here with you today.
Thank you, lovely, for being here. So let's paint the picture of you. So you started off in teaching. Sort of, how did that start of your journey come about in terms of deciding you were going into the teaching world?
So I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. We always laugh because my brother, my middle brother, I call him, is 16 months younger than me, and I had taught him to read by the time he was 2.
Oh, really?
Always, yeah. It was always really, really clear that I was going to be a teacher. I'd come from a family of teachers. I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. So when I was a teenager, I used to go and volunteer for the charity MenCap, helping with play schemes, running play schemes for children who had learning difficulties. And then I became a play leader. And I knew by the time I sort of had left home to go to university when I was 18, I knew for sure that I was going to go into teaching. I wasn't sure then whether I was going to go into special needs education or whether I was going to go into mainstream education, but I knew that I wanted to be a teacher.
And then how long were you in the teaching profession?
Well, scarily 18 years. And I genuinely thought, until I found coaching, I genuinely thought that I would stay in teaching until I retired.
Yeah.
It was my vocation. I loved it. I didn't love everything about it, but I did love being in the classroom with kids. Loved being the teenagers. Loved English, loved my subject English and media and drama. I loved it all. So I thought that I would do that forever until I stumbled across coaching.
Yeah. So what happened? Like, what led you then off on the new path?
Yeah, so completely sort of accidentally, really. I went on a leadership course when I was a teacher, and we were put into coaching triads, so groups of 3, where we had to just start practicing coaching after a really brief introduction. Anyway, I was working with 2 other heads of department who were in schools locally, and I was coaching, and one of them just kind of stopped the conversation and just went, "Oh my goodness, Sarah, you're really good at this." And when she said that, I was like, oh yeah, like she's not just being nice.
Yeah.
There is something here. There's definitely something here. So that kind of piqued my curiosity. And I didn't really do anything with it then for a few years. It just kind of sat there. It was just sat there as this kind of spark of possibility. And then I think I probably started sort of doing a little bit of research And then the Facebook ads caught up with me from the Coaching Academy. And that's how it all happened.
Yeah. And then were you juggling then having to, I mean, do the teaching, the coaching, training, and being a mum?
Yeah, so it was, as it often is, and I know, Laura, that you will relate to this, and so many people listening to this will relate to it. It often happens, doesn't it? We find ourselves, I had 3 really, really young children. My youngest was still a baby, and I crazily decided that, well, I was teaching 3 tiny children, and I was like, I think I'm just going to investigate this coaching thing.
Well, why
Because
not?
I think, why not? Because I've got all of this
Nothing to do.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, if I'm honest, by the time I'd gone back from maternity leave with my third, I think the first time I thought, this isn't great, like this should be easier. And then with my second, I was like, this isn't great, this should be easier. And then with my third, I was like, this is actually really rubbish. And why are we and my eyes were more open then. I was more aware. I was like, why are we treating women like this? Why are we treating parents like this?
Yeah.
Expecting them just to get back into the workplace, giving them a hard time about the fact they've been away, and expect them to continue as if nothing had happened.
Yeah.
So I think that, although I said I love teaching, I did love teaching, but I think there was the beginnings of some kind of desire there for a change. So yes, so I started my coaching training when my children were tiny and when I was still teaching. And you had very little time, but I knew that I really loved it. And I think if you really love something, you figure it out, you find a way to make it work, even if it's not easy.
Yeah. And how did you sort of protect your sanity and your well-being at that? Was mindset and well-being part of your life sort of at that point, or did it have to become part of your life?
Really good question. It literally was not part of my life. It wasn't part of my life. Because it's not part of, as a teacher, that's just not part of your life. Teachers work super hard and don't know how to look after themselves on the whole. My husband was a junior doctor at that time, so he was, although I was going to say he was there, but he wasn't present like most of the time because he was working crazy hours. And so I literally went to work, looked after the kids. That was it. That was it. I think the one thing that I did start doing actually was when my middle one was a baby, I looked at these 2 tiny boys and all the bundles of energy that they had and thought, I don't think I'm going to survive this. And so I thought I have to do something. And I was really, really fortunate then, because I just happened to stumble across Headspace meditation. And at that time, I just started meditating for 10 minutes a day. And I swear that saved my sanity. I haven't stopped. 10,
Yeah.
I'm 12 now. I'm like, thank God for meditation. I think that has been the one thing that's really, really helped me.
Yeah. Just those 10, I mean, as I've told you about it before, but I have a bit of a stop and start history with meditation, but I notice the difference. I like just those 10 minutes a day. It really makes an impact. Just helps to, I don't know, somehow keep your thoughts a little bit not under control, but you're just a bit more aware of your mind when you've been doing some meditation, or I find anyway.
I completely agree. And I don't even think it has to be meditation, but I think if you can find 10 minutes a day, and this is like, we're talking like absolute bare minimum here, but I think if you can find 10 minutes a day just to do something for yourself, whether that's going for a walk or reading a book or whatever that thing is for you, that's got to be a minimum commitment, right, that we make to ourselves.
Just stepping out of that autopilot and the times I'm suddenly at the end of the day and think I almost slept walk through today. Everything was just, oh, this is what we do. And at the end of the day, like, okay, when did I stop and just step off the roller coaster? Sometimes you're just on it, aren't you?
You absolutely are.
And what was the crunch point where you were like, okay, goodbye teaching? I mean, I know you still have an affiliation, a passion with the education sector, and so it's not as though you abandoned it. But what was sort of the point at which you were like, okay, this is it, coaching is it?
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember having conversations with other people who were further ahead than me, and they said to me, you'll just know, like, you'll just know when it becomes too much to juggle both. And I think after a couple of years, it did just become too much to juggle both. And I got to a point where I was like, no, I'm ready. Like, I know that I'm ready to go now. And also because in that time, because I'd grown a lot personally, I recognized that I was in an environment, sadly, that was on the whole like quite negative. And I kind of got to a point where I thought, I don't fit here anymore. And so I knew that I didn't belong there anymore. And so even though it was really, really hard, because I'd literally been in teaching since I was 22, I was like, I have to move, I have to take the leap. And it was scary.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's no doubt about it. It was really, really scary to leave that security. But I just got to a point where I was like, I know that I love coaching. I know that it's working. It's time to make that move.
Yeah. Amazing. And it's a brave thing to make the leap. You know, it's the becoming a mum as well as such a sort of transition and change of identity in itself. And then, but like you say, it does then start to bring other things maybe to the surface. And, you know, what is it that I really want to be doing, and who am I now? And what do I want from life and work? And there's so much involved in that.
There is. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think although navigating that process of going back to work or not going back to work, whatever you do when you've had children, it is in many ways a privilege that we have that opportunity to consider, like, is this what I want?
Yeah, because it's not one that everyone has.
No, it's not.
So yeah, that's a really good point, Sarah. And then sort of how's it been then? Because I mean, when I first knew you, you were working as a coach, and then, as you say, you've now grown the business into a partnership with Rebecca. Sort of how's that all been? Like, how has that journey looked for you?
Yeah, it's been exciting. It's been really exciting. There's literally never a dull moment. Rebecca and I came into partnership together initially in 2020, initially to support teacher wellbeing. And then we realized fairly quickly after that we were running two very similar businesses and that it would make sense to come together and to combine them into a partnership. So we formed our partnership, the Coaching Catalysts. And it's been great. It's been a really, really exciting, ever-changing, ever-evolving journey. But I feel really grateful to be doing it in partnership with Rebecca. I think when you go into business by yourself, it's tough and it can be lonely. And I think being in partnership has its challenges as well. There's no doubt about it. We always joke that it's like having a second marriage. It definitely has its challenges.
It takes work.
But there's a lot of fun and there's a lot of joy, and that definitely outweighs any challenges that are there. So feel really blessed to have found Rebecca. I wouldn't advise going into business with somebody just for the sake of being in a partnership. I think it has to be the right person. But yeah, it's been a real blessing. She's amazing.
Yeah, she is. She's great. And the two of you work so well together. It's a really great dynamic.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. And as you say, having someone else around, I mean, if it's not a partnership but it's finding your people, isn't it? It's finding the people. So if you're a coach who's supporting you, who's got your back, who, you know, having those champions and people that you can talk to rather than just having to go it alone. I guess that's really important.
Yeah, it is really important. And building those relationships that are genuine relationships as well. I'm sure, you know, lots of people starting out in business will resonate with this, but you know, when you start out, you go along to the networking groups and you interact with all sorts of different people, and that's an important part probably of the journey. But it's also really important to find the people that you really resonate with, that you really trust, like our relationship, Laura, you know, that's been a real blessing. You know, that we've known each other really from the beginning, and we really value our relationship.
Yeah. No, me too. I mean, feel almost a bit teary, but yeah, like we have, and that's it. You kind of people that have your back and that you can share things with when you're on the journey, the highs and the lows, because it isn't always the good stuff. And yeah, finding people, and also people in a, you kind of need people that are not necessarily exactly at the right place, but you need the right people at the right time.
You do. Yeah, you do.
To have that support network, because quite often, yeah, life, you're on the life journey, but you need those people that come in that help fill the cup.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, you have a real passion as well, Sarah, for obviously the mindset work as a coach, but also the well-being and the importance of well-being for yourself and for the people in your world as well, and the other coaches and people that you work with. Don't you? I mean,
Yeah.
how does that look in your world or play out? Like, why is the sort of well-being element so important?
I think that I started to notice the impacts on people of them not paying attention to their well-being. So I was very lucky when I was in teaching. As a young teacher, I had an amazing mentor. And he sadly passed away 5-6 years ago. So kind of like when I was still fairly on in my coaching journey. And he passed away sort of almost immediately after retirement. And I just felt really gutted. I felt so gutted for him and for his family, because he'd literally given his life to his profession. And I was like, wow, it's cruel. It just felt really, really cruel. But what struck me even more was when I went up to Leeds to the funeral, I met ex-colleagues, former colleagues who was struggling, really struggling with mental health issues, and who had been so bright and so inspiring, and had just been crushed, just been crushed by the system, and just been crushed by giving it all and not giving themselves anything. And I was like, wow, this isn't right. Like, this is really not right. So it just really showed me, this is what it looks like if you don't take care of yourself. This is what happens.
Yeah. You just don't know, do you? You don't know what tomorrow brings. And yeah, it can't just all be about work and the doing, the go, and you've got to sometimes find those ways to press that pause button.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to caveat that and to say, I'm not suggesting, of course, in any way that if you have mental health issues, that it's in any way your fault. It just was that I saw the impact of the people that had given so much, and the impact it had on their physical health, their mental health. Yeah, it was crushing.
Yeah. And so what do you do now to make sure that you look after your I know some of the things, but other people you're quite you know what's right for you, what works for you, and you've got your boundaries, which I love.
Yeah, so thank you. That's something I've worked really hard on, because again, when I started coaching, I realized I was working with people on things like the wheel of life, and looking at balance, and looking at well-being, and looking at mindset. And for me, it's always been super important that I walk my talk. So I've really made my mindset, my well-being a priority. It's always a work in progress. I don't think any of us is ever the finished article, but it's always a work in progress. So I really do prioritize sleep, exercise, meditation, as those kind of, and my nutrition as those kind of like bedrocks of like, this is what well-being is for me. And it's so important because I think for all of us in the work that we do, certainly Laura, in the work that you do and in the work that I do, we are our energy, right? Like, we're showing up, we're holding space for other people. And so our energy really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we don't take care and replenish the energy for ourselves, we haven't got anything to give to other people. So yeah, it's important. And yes, boundaries, God, a work in progress, but really important, because otherwise, I always talk about, you know, this, I always talk about all of these roles, all of these responsibilities that we carry as women. And it's so easy for them to get skewed and for us to not focus on the most important things. So that's where boundaries are so important for me, to keep my focus on what's actually important versus like all of the noise.
Yeah, I know it is. It's you're so right. And it always sticks with me when you've talked before about the table, like the table, and then yes, almost your self-care table. And then if one of your legs falls off, you're a bit wonky, and then, you know, another one falls off, you're in trouble. You know, it's so important to have those pillars in place, even if they're little things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Little things do matter.
Yeah.
And if someone is, I mean, we talked about the privilege of being able to do this, but if someone is listening or watching and they are either interested in coaching or that life feels a bit off at the moment, some, you know, maybe if they've heard of the Wheel of Life, or they're looking and thinking, okay, so there's some focus, maybe I need to focus on a different direction or something, sort of what's the first steps almost? I mean, is it stuff that you need to do yourself, or is it getting a coach? Because even, I suppose, getting a coach can feel quite overwhelming and quite a commitment for people. But if you've got that sense that you feel like something might be a bit off, or that you might want to change something, have you got any advice for?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think my sort of go-to question is, what do I want? And the reason for that, even though it sounds like such a simple question, that we so often focus on the stuff that we don't want. We focus on what's going wrong, and our brains are predisposed to negativity. So they will go there and they will continue to regurgitate that information about what we don't want, what we don't want, what we don't want. But when we focus on what we do want and we can see it, then we can start to take steps towards it. And we can start to take steps to create it. Now, sometimes we can do that ourselves. And sometimes, as in the transition, say, that I made between teaching and coaching, there's no way I would have done that without the support of coaches. There's just no way. I wouldn't have been able to manage my mindset sufficiently and to have that self-belief and determination and consistency without support in coaching. So I think that's where the coaching comes in, is firstly to help you if you're struggling to focus on, well, what is it that I really want? Because that is a big question for lots of us. I'm not really sure what I want. I know what I don't want, but what do I want? That's one thing that coaching can help with. But the other thing that coaching can help with is, okay, once you decide what you want and what's important to you, how are you going to get there? Because for me, when I was still in the classroom and I was like, oh, this coaching thing sounds amazing, but it was so far away. I was like, wow, but that's for other people. I can't do that. Because what I know is I know how to talk to teenagers and I know a bit about poetry, but I literally don't know anything else about anything. It was so far away from me. And so I needed support from coaches who could help me break it down, who could help me build my self-belief so that I could get from where I was to where I wanted to be. And that for me is the power of coaching.
And I've seen it in action. I know how powerful it is. And so what's next? I mean, you've been on this journey. I know there's a lot going on with you and Rebecca, but I mean, what's coming up? What now, or maybe even in the bigger plan? Like, can we have a little taster?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got two sort of core offerings coming up. So one is we are getting ready to launch our new service, which is for coaches focused on coach supervision. So supporting coaches to be the best that they can, ethically, professionally, and really, really thrive and really own that coaching space. Really excited about that. Our second kind of big thing is that we've got a new course for female leaders and aspiring leaders to really help with those pieces around mindset, confidence, well-being, communication, to again really step into those roles and to really thrive. So that's the two kind of big catalyst pieces. And of course, outside of that, you know, I continue to work one-to-one in coaching on career goals, business goals, mindset, well-being goals, whatever it is that people need support with.
Yeah, and it's important stuff. Like, I mean, and even small changes can make, like, they, you know, put them all together, either whether it's the habit stacking or the little things that you can do, especially around, I mean, I've learned so much from you about sort of mindset, but also the confidence there. I know you and Rebecca are very passionate as well about the women's confidence and finding your brave, which I've done stuff with you around that as well. Even just those little seeds, plant a few seeds, and then it can really, it can be really powerful, can't it?
Absolutely. And the power is 100% in our hands to make changes when we choose to.
Yeah.
And you're right, it starts with those really small steps. It doesn't start with massive action. It starts with really small, consistent steps and moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, have you got any sort of final thoughts, or if anyone's listening or watching thinking, oh, you know, I want to follow in Sarah's footsteps, or, you know, are self-doubting themselves or anything, like, I know I'm throwing a big final question at you here, but, you know, any sort of final thoughts, or even to a younger version of us almost, like, is there anything you feel you've learned along the way?
Oh, do you know what? I honestly think the biggest thing I've learned along the way, and I know that you're 100% with me on this one, is about the importance of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see you cultivating in Women Aloud is the importance of those relationships where we can be real and we can really connect with each other. And I think that that's what so many of us are missing, because we're busy, because so much communication happens on social media, which can be a force for good, but also can, you know, give us a kind of skewed impression of what life looks like. So it's relationships, connection for me, that really, really important. And knowing that within that, you don't have to do it alone. So it might be that you need more support from community, from Women Aloud. It might be that you think, do you know what? I do feel stuck and I am ready to make a change, in which case it might be coaching support that you need. But whatever it is, it all comes down to relationships and connection. And I think valuing yourself enough as well to recognize that.
Yeah. We haven't got that village. Excuse me. We haven't got the village, have we, around us now?
No.
And we're just trying to juggle so much on our own, and then wondering why we're feeling burnt out or lonely, or, you know, something feels off, and yet we're trying to do it all.
You're so right. It is. It's about building our own village.
Yeah, building those connections and being okay with asking for help, accepting help.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because it takes courage.
yeah, but we're all here for it. Thank you, Sarah. It's been really lovely to chat, and I'm going to put all of your links in with this, so that people can get in touch if they want to know more and to see what you and Rebecca are up to as well. But yeah, it's been really lovely. So thank you for your time today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Laura. It's been really lovely to chat to you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.